So we will get started. Hello everyone. My name is Steve. I am a senior engineer on the Uno platform team, and I'm gonna do a little bit of an explanation of what Uno platform is, just so we're on the same page. But it's gonna be mostly we're just gonna get into some tech and build some cool stuff. I'm not gonna do too many slides. So basically, Uno platform, if you haven't heard of it, it's just yet another cross-platform development framework for .NET. So basically, you can build macOS, iOS, Android, Linux, the web, and any other platforms you can think of rendered natively. So it's sort of like you can think of it at a crossroads between sort of like the native rendering that we're doing, that Maui is sort of doing, with the Flutter sort of style of rendering as well. So we kind of do both. We render in a little bit of a different way than Maui does, and we also target the same platforms that we can target with the native rendering. We can do it with our Skia-based rendering as well, right? So we can have a Windows application, a macOS application, a Linux application, and it has Skia-based rendering as the backend. It'll look the exact same as if you were going to run that non-Skia-based platform on Windows or macOS or anything like that, using the native widgets as well, right? And so basically, we're sitting on top of .NET for iOS, .NET for Android, all those SDKs that Maui could have sit on top of as well. We utilize those as well, and that's sort of like all I'm going to get into for Uno. All you have to really know is it's a cross-platform development framework, and so we're going to get into building some cool stuff, and we're going to be using a lot of the sort of ecosystem that comes around with Uno platform. So we have some libraries for extensions, for doing things like dependency injection and navigation and presentation frameworks. So we're going to use all those bits as we go. And so the only other thing that you really have to know is we don't have our own APIs for our UIs, right? So what we're doing is we're taking the WinUI APIs, so the WinUI 3 APIs for if you were to build a Windows application, and we're basically stretching those across all these other platforms, right? So we're taking those APIs and we're plugging them into the native bits for every other platform. So we don't actually have our own UI API or non-UI APIs. We actually are just utilizing all the ones that are coming from Microsoft. And so what we get out of the box with that is sort of free documentation, right? So if you just go to the documentation for the WinUI APIs, you're getting documentation for building an Uno app. So if you build a Windows app, you are an Uno developer, and you just didn't know it. And yeah, so I'll put these slides will be up. I don't know how to, I'm sure there's a way we can share slides later. But so the basic 3 things that we're going to be looking through are this 2-player GitHub repository that I have here. And it is available also as a workshop. So if you were to go to like the actual platform Uno website, there is a 2-player sort of workshop that sort of walks you through this step by step. And so we're also going to be utilizing this Figma file. So we're going to be looking at the actual UI designs for this application that we're going to build, right? So if I, oh, everything closed, great. So we're going to open up a 2-player, and we're going to open up our repo for 2-player. So basically, this 2-player workshop that we have here that we're going to build is split up in these modules. So if you want to jump ahead, if at any time you want to look at this and jump ahead, so there's a branch for every single state the app should be in at each part of this module. And so we're just going to go. And I have this all set up, so you're not just going to watch me type. I have code snippets ready to go, and we're just going to explain stuff as we go. So this is a 2-player at module 0, so just as a blank app. That's what I'm going to start as, but basically we're just going to go through the sort of module 0 beforehand, just so we can get a look at how we would start up an Uno app and what an Uno app actually looks like. So if I open a Visual Studio, you can do this in VS Code, you can do this in Visual Studio, you can do this in Rider. It's all built in, but we have the nicest sort of experience with Visual Studio. So I have the Visual Studio Uno platform sort of plugin installed here. And if we were just going to go ahead and create a new Uno app, this is really annoying. we should get the wizard popping up, and it's really interesting. So this is actually within the shell of, or within the sandbox of like Visual Studio, right? So we're opening up a sort of a WPF app within Visual Studio that's actually an Uno app. So this app right here, this wizard that's within Visual Studio, is built with Uno itself. And so we get this nice way that you can sort of bootstrap an application with all the stuff you need to do. So I'm going to start off with, there's a recommended template, so I'm going to do a blank one just because we're going to do some stuff custom. So you can target Net 8 preview if you want. At this point, we'll do Net 9 preview, but we'll do Net 8. Like I mentioned, so here are all the platforms, right? So it's falling off my ear. Okay. So you can do all your mobile platforms, you can target web through WebAssembly, and you can target desktop through multiple things, right? So macOS through Catalyst, Windows, basically, Uno kind of steps aside and does nothing because Windows is doing its own thing and we're targeting the same APIs. And then we have the Skia-based desktop. So right now, what's only released is the Skia-based rendering for the desktop targets, but we will have the other targets as well. So you can sort of mix and match canvas-based rendering versus native rendering. But you have this, a WPF shell or an X11 on Linux or frame buffer, or on macOS, the actual app kit, like real macOS window. And then within that, it's just the Skia-based rendering canvas, right? So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So we're just going to leave this all the same. For presentation, out of the box, you can have nothing. You can have the Community Toolkit MVVM stuff installed for you. And we also have this presentation framework that we're going to get into a little bit called MVUX from Uno, right? So MVUX, I'll talk about it for a quick second, stands for Model View Update Extended. So they like to talk of it as if MVVM and MVU sort of had a baby, right? And they got together. So if you, how could I explain it? Basically, if you've ever worked with like reactive extensions, observables, like Java streams, like those types of things, like rx.net at all. So it's everything that is observable. You have these observable streams of data that you just sort of subscribe to and hook into the objects. And basically, we have this glue that gets generated for you that is the bindable version. So you don't have to worry about iNotify property change. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So data binding is given to you free out of the box. And then you basically expose your data on your models or your view models as feeds or states. So a feed is basically just a stream of data. So it's an immutable, stateless stream of data that you just bind to or you hook into, and you can listen to as the object pushes more updates to it. And then a state is basically a feed with that has a state, right? So you can push actual updates to it. So if you had two-way bindings for things like a text box, right? So you can have that stream of data coming from your model, but you could also push data to it from the UI as well. So that is your mutable feed is your state, right? That's all you really have to know. We're not going to get into too many crazy details about it, but where's my wizard there? So we're going to start MVUX. You also have the ability to build your UI using XAML or C#. So I'm staying with XAML. The actual workshop on the website uses C# as its markup language, but I don't enjoy that. So I much rather enjoy XAML. We're going to do this with material. Out of the box, everything is sort of Fluent styled, so it looks like a Windows app across all the platforms. You can have your native styles come through, or you can have material design as your sort of universal UI. So that's what we're going to do. And we have some extensions. So Uno has these set of libraries of modules called Uno extensions. And so it's sort of like battle-tested application architecture that you could just put it in a modular way, right? So I want to have dependency injection involved. I want to have some configuration, so I want to have the ability to load some app settings from like an app settings.json. And we're going to have HTTP because we're eventually going to call the YouTube API. But for now, we'll leave that. We'll add it in later. And the other thing is we're going to use our Uno extensions navigation extension, basically. So it's called region navigation. So instead of just doing normal frame navigation that you would in Windows, basically this is a navigation framework that you can navigate via view model, navigate via view, navigate via routes. navigate directly from XAML only using attached properties. So it's got some really cool stuff. So we will look at that as we go. And the only other thing we will add is the toolkit. So the Uno toolkit is just basically a set of additional controls and helper classes that are just nice for building applications. And they're built, obviously, for cross-platform. So they work on all the platforms, including Windows. So let's get started and build this application. So that was the wizard, basically. So you can set up everything sort of as you go. And this is what, not this, this is what an Uno application looks like. So, oh, go away. So basically here is you'll have a single project. So if you've ever worked with Maui or things like that, you're used to this as well. Everything's now in a single CS proj, and you have, oh, interesting. Oh, maybe I can't zoom. Yeah, I can't zoom. Okay. Does this work? Yes, this works. Okay. Strange. Okay, anyway. You have this single project and you have this platforms folder, right? So in platforms, you have the entry point for all your, iOS, Android. I don't know if it's too small. Okay. iOS, Android, and that's where you would put any sort of native platform-specific code if you had any. At this point, we're not going to be doing any of that. So that is basically that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up from, so this is basically this two-player.app. I'm just starting from the GitHub project instead. And it's the same exact thing that I just did, except it has some like my tabs and my spaces nicely done. So I don't want to deal with the editor config and all that stuff in the app we just created. So I'll close this. And then I will open up my snippets. So we can do this quickly. Sorry. Hey. There you go. Okay. So let's get to building the application. Okay. So we'll run it just quickly on the desktop target just because it's the quickest. But we'll also run it a little bit on Android and give it some time to build while we talk about some other stuff. But basically, the desktop target is what I was talking about before. It's just going to load up like a native shell for whichever desktop platform you're on. So here I'm on Windows, so it's going to load up a WPF shell, and we'll have Skia-based rendering for our UI on the inside. And so this is what the Uno platform application looks like out of the box, right? So just from the template. So because I included things like navigation and stuff like that, it includes 2 pages in the app, which we're going to need anyway, and it does some navigation and stuff like that. So I could type in Steve here, and I can go to second page, and it passes Steve as a data to the second page, and blah, blah, blah. So it does some stuff that we're actually going to utilize anyway. And you get some nice things, like if I were to go to the main page, and I don't know, change the button content or something. And we should get some nice hot reload. So, right, so I can save this, and it should hopefully update the application as it builds it. And we have hello CPH here now. And then we actually have a cool little, you can turn this off because it's annoying if it's always on your screen, but we have this little hot reload indicator now when you're in debug. So it tells you if the state of your XAML, and you'll notice the state like it didn't rebuild the whole app, you know what I mean? Like I still have Steve in my text box here, and you'll get the little sort of history of the hot reload status that happened as you were making changes to your application while it was running. So cool stuff. So in the meantime, I'm just going to get it to go to Android just because it's sort of like a mobile-based workshop. It works on all platforms, and we're going to show it working on all the platforms, but it's sort of mostly for mobile to like the way it's designed. I'll let it load. Oh, okay, Visual Studio is going to crash. So while that's loading, we're going to look at what our app is going to look like, what we're going to build. So it's also going to be a not theme. Where is it? Screens. So it's going to be a 2-page application, and it's going to look like this, right? So we're going to have our search bar, we're going to have a list of videos, we're going to have different states that the main page can be in depending on what's going on with our data as we're retrieving, if there's an error, if there's no data, and then basically a video player and some data when we navigate, when we select a video, right? So we'll come back to this later because there's actually some more rich, cool stuff that happens in this Figma file for our designs. And for now, we'll do this. But what we're going to do next is we're going to get started. And I might jump ahead, depending on how much time we have, I might just jump ahead and like jump to a different branch that already has everything set up, and I can explain what was done. So this is the same exact application that we had just done now running on Android. And we have that little hot reload here. So the first thing we're going to do is we already have those 2 pages, right? So we're just going to rename this to our video details page instead of second page. Sorry, video details model, because that's our view model, basically. And we'll have this as our video details page instead of second page. Video details page. And this is going to give me issues renaming, because it always does. So second page. And so now we'll take a look at our app.xaml.cs, which is our first entry point into our application. And you'll be familiar if you're done like ASP.NET stuff, or if you've done like MAUI stuff now. There's like the MAUI host builder and the app builder. So we have the same idea here. You have your builder for your app where you kind of hook in and punch in all the features that you'd want. So we're using our Uno extension navigation. We have our dependency injection ready to go to register our services. We have that configuration extension that I had done before where it's going to load up stuff into strongly typed classes as our app settings. And it does all this nice stuff. The other thing it does is it registers our routes for our navigation extensions. So like I mentioned before, you can define your navigation using your view models, using navigating by page and navigating by route. So here we have our navigation view maps. So this is what, if we navigate to the main view model or the main model, this is where it knows, okay, the main page is what's going to have to be rendered on the screen. And the same thing, we have our routes here. So you can navigate to complex routes, so you can build a route as you want, and it'll do the deep linking. You can navigate to named routes like this. And so if I navigate to second, it'll know to go to the second page. And it knows that it's within the main shell, so it'll navigate within there. It does all the smartness for you, right? So the thing we're going to change here is video details page, just the name. And this makes more sense to be called video details as our route. So the next thing is our main page. So if we go back to presentation, our main page, this is what we are used to seeing, just this text box and this button. We want a text box and basically a list of data. So I'm going to build out some very, very basic UI, and we'll connect it to some mock data. And then we'll bring in the UI from the design, and we'll connect it with the actual real data coming from YouTube. So if I replace the content of our page here, I just replaced it basically with a text box that's going to be representing our search term, and this dumb list view that just has hard-coded results for what we're going to be searching for basically in the end. And our main model, so our main view model, which I forgot to show before, already has MVUX and all that stuff that I was mentioning built in. So you'll notice that it had for that text box, it had a state, which is a feed of data, right? That's a string. And then obviously it's a state because we could push stuff to this feed. So I'm going to get rid of all this now. And we will replace it with basically nothing at this point, since we have no data at this point. So this is just going to be basically an empty record of main model, and there's nothing on it at this point. So the last thing we're going to do to hook up is going to be creating some mock data that we can get this UI hooked up to. So I'm going to create 2 folders called services. Services. and business. So we're going to have our service and our business layer. Our service layer is going to be where we're going to have our endpoints eventually. So our actual, that's the layer that we're going to be calling our API on. And we're going to have a models class that's just going to hold all of our service level models. I wouldn't suggest putting this all in one class, but it's just easier for the demo. Do as I do, not, oh, sorry, do as I say, not as I do. So this is just going to be a bunch of data representing what's eventually going to be coming from the API and from our mock data, right? So it's just, you don't really need to know all the details, but all the data classes representing all the video details and the snippets and stats and the play counts and all that stuff. And then in our business, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a models, and we're going to have a models.cs, and I'm going to give it the same thing. So basically, the main thing that we're going to care about through this whole application is the YouTube video business model, which is going to be taking in those data models from the service layer and just making it nice and readable and presentable for our presentation layer to consume. Now, the mock data stuff is where we get to go do the fun stuff. So YouTube service mock data. So we're just going to have a class representing some mock data. And what this actually is I did a search for Uno platform on YouTube, and I took the JSON payload that was coming back as the results of that, and I just shoved that into a channel data string that's representing the JSON, right? And so we're going to deserialize that in our mock YouTube service. So in the business layer, we're going to have a business service, and it's going to be defined by our iYouTube service interface. And so iYouTube service, since we're using dependency injection and all this stuff that's coming from our Uno extensions, we're going to define it as an interface, and it's going to have this search videos, where we're going to give it the query from the text box we type in, and then some other stuff that, it comes with it, but there's going to be pagination and incremental loading, so you could just send the tokens and the page size and all that stuff. And right now, the only implementation that we'll have for this is going to be our mock version of this service, right? So I'll just call it YouTube service mock. And if I replace it all with this guy, you'll notice I'll get rid of the squigglies in a second, but we're implementing this iYouTube service, just the mock version as it is now. And you'll notice that our search videos method that we're implementing is just going to be live filtering on the JSON payload coming from the YouTube service mock data here. And you'll notice that actually our YouTube service class is being injected with an iSerializer. So an iSerializer is just a common interface that comes with the Uno serialization extensions as part of those like modular bits that you can put in. And so basically it comes with pre-built serializers for like XML and JSON and all that stuff. And you can give it custom serializers as well to register in your dependency injection container. And then it exposes this basically as an iSerializer that you can inject anywhere in your code base, right? So just injectable serializers that you can pass along to your services anywhere you want. So we will register those in the app.xaml in a second. But first, getting rid of those squigglies. So add some global usings so they go away. And then we're going to register this in our app.xaml.cs in our dependency injection container, right? So we'll register our iYouTube service with the YouTube service mock as it is right now in our configure services. And we will use what I was mentioning before, the serialization extensions, and we'll hook up that feature in our builder. And you'll see here, we're actually just injecting some options that you can customize the built-in serializers from Uno extensions. So just some property naming policies that we're going to do. Nothing important. So finally, we have all of our business services. We have all of everything included now that we need to do. So in our not in our models, in our presentation models, sorry. here. Our main model now, so our data context for our main page can be changed out for this. So we have a state again. So again, this is just going to be the MVUX like observable feed that can be bound on the UI to say like to just observe what the value is. But it's a state because we could also do two-way binding. You could type into this text box and push the updates to this feed of data on the main model. And we're just going to be initializing it with an initial value. So that is going to be representing on our data context for our view model the search box, basically, so how we're going to filter our data. And so the other thing that we need to do for this data context is the actual data coming back. So what we're going to bind to represent the results of this data, right? So here is where you'd add this list feed. Now list feed is just a fancy way of saying an I feed of an I list of a YouTube video. So instead of having all those cascading generics, you could just say it's a list feed of YouTube video, and the consuming thing will expose, the feed will expose its data as an I collection of whatever your type of list feed is. And so here what you'll see happening actually is we're observing the search term feed, right? So we're observing the state and we're filtering on that to say whenever something is pushed to the search term, notify me of that, and I could filter it. So I could say I only care about updates of the search term when it's a valid value, when it has a length, and then project an asynchronous method on this to actually call our YouTube service to do the search term, right? So search videos using this search term, and we do nothing really with the pagination of the next page token and all that stuff at this point. And basically grab that video list and just expose it as a feed. So convert that I collection to a feed, give it all the fancy I observable stuff, wrap it around, and do all that stuff for us. And so that's all you need to do for that. So the main page is where we're going to actually bind to those things now. So I'll replace this text box here with this text box, which nothing really changed that much, right? Except we have this text binding to search terms, so there's nothing special you have to do. It still understands that this is a type of string, even though it's an actual type of iState of string. So that's where the fancy sort of bindable glue that gets auto-generated by the MVUX stuff comes into play. And it'll be a two-way binding, and we're just going to be saying update the binding every time the property changes, not every time we lose focus or click enter on the text box, which is what is done by default. And then the list view is something we'll also remove. And we will add this list view. And I'll just format it properly. And so basically here, our item source for our list view is now just going to be that iList feed. And so it's smart enough to know, okay, this is an I collection of YouTube video. And then display its data and its title and its channel title as elements of the list as we go, right? And video details model is what was used to be our second model, so the data context for our second page. We're going to replace that with just some dummy stuff. So it's going to be a video details view model, basically. It's going to be accepting a YouTube video as a navigation parameter when we click on it. And right now we're just exposing a video source that's just of type media source, which is what the media player element is eventually going to consume. But at this point, we just give it an empty one. And we will, on the main page, there's no such thing as entity on our data context anymore, so I'm just going to remove that. And this should work now. So if we were to build this, and while that's building, this will be our basic UI that we'll see here. Actually, it auto-updated. Oh, did I screw something up? What did I do? Video details model. I forgot about that. So, okay. And so that'll be a basic UI that's just going to show a search box and text, basically. That's going to be representing our videos. And we can do live search and live filtering based on the JSON endpoints of the mock data. But what we're going to do next, while this builds, is we're actually going to go to this Figma file here. And we're going to take and implement it so it looks nicer, right? So it looks like this. Well, we'll see what it looks like in a second as it pops up. Here. There you go. So it defaults to Uno platform. So we have these, this stuff that we can do here. If I were to clear it out, it auto searches for nothing basically. I could do NDC conferences, or NDC, I guess. And one of the ones that's in there, mock data, is an NDC conference talk from Martin Zygmunt from last year in London. And so you see it is live filtering as we go, and it doesn't look very good, but it's working. So the next thing we can do is actually get this UI to look like this, right? And so one of the great things is this was built with, we have a Figma file. So a Figma, sorry if you didn't know, is a design tool basically. You can design out how your application looks like. You can drag components around, get it to look all nice and fancy. And we actually have a plugin here, so I can actually run the Uno platform plugin in the context of this screen. And again, this is a web-based tool, right? So within the confines of Figma right here, this is actually a little Uno application that's running since we're targeting the web as well. And I can select this dummy Figma file that's just data, that's just design data that you just drag it around. I can refresh. And since this is I'll put it to light mode. Since this is a Uno application that we're using here, what it's actually doing is it's parsing the data that it sees on the design file, and it's generating actual XAML, and it's actually injecting that in a previewer. And so this is a real Uno application with the actual data working, right? So this is an actual text box that I can type in. Obviously, nothing's connected in the back end because it's just the front end that it generates. But this is a real working Uno app, or Uno page, I should say. And you can see here, this is the XAML that was generated based on that design data. And so what we can do is we can actually copy this data and just dump it into our app, and it should now take on the design that we want, right? And so what I have done, it's already done in the snippet, so I'm not going to copy it directly from here because I fixed up some tabs in editing and spacing and stuff. So we can go back here, and we can replace our main page. We'll just take it out from what comes in from Figma, and we'll do the same thing. Oh, that's not what I want to do. And we'll do the same thing for our video details page. So our video details page will clear out, and we'll bring in what was there in Figma. And I will format the XAML. Okay. And we can run it again, and now we should have a much better looking application connected to our, what did I do? Video details page, oh, I have a typo. Video details page. 1 second. Did I screw it all up everywhere? Let's see. Video, yes. There you go. Okay. So as that builds, what we should then see is basically this. So we'll have this list of data, and we'll also have, actually we won't see it right now, but what we will see eventually is this video player with this stuff here as well. So as that builds, we'll go on to the next step. And we will edit. So, oh, here we go. We'll let that load. But basically what we're going to want to do is we have this view map that is a data view map, meaning we're expecting data parameters for this navigation. And so we're no longer expecting an entity, right? We're expecting a video. Oh, we're expecting a video. We're expecting a YouTube video that we click on here. But you'll see now we actually have the working UI that it should look like from our designs, and this is running now, right now, on our application, and it's actually like live working, right? So if I search for NDC, we have the actual nice version of that NDC video that we were looking at before in our mock data. If I click on it, nothing happens. It might crash. Yeah, it'll crash. So that is because it's failing to pass the right parameter, because it was expecting an entity, but we're actually passing a YouTube video. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead. So I'm going to jump ahead, and we're going to undo all I just did, just in the purpose of time. You don't have to watch me do all this. So we're going to go to module 8. Yes, we're going to go to module 8. And what I have done is I have jumped forward in time, where we now are using the the YouTube APIs themselves, right? So if I look here now in my business, I should have my YouTube service mock, but I should now have a YouTube service. And my YouTube service is actually going to be injected with this YouTube endpoint. And so this is another interface that I've created, and it's going to be living in our services services layer. So if I look at YouTube endpoint, we're actually going to be utilizing the HTTP extensions that come with Uno extensions. This is one of those modular things that you can pull in, and part of that uses refit. So refit, if you don't know, basically, I'm not going to give this a good explanation, but basically it does all the hard stuff for you for calling APIs. So you define an interface, like I do here, and then you just tag it with different attributes to say, here's the endpoint, here's the API, here's the path of the API, here are the parameters, here's the headers. And it generates actually all the implementation code to actually call the API and return the data and deserialize it to the proper data that you're expecting and doing that stuff for you. So it just makes it nice and clean, so I don't have to do it myself. And you'll see on our app.xaml.cs that I have this used HTTP sort of feature that I've added to our builder. And so that's part of the HTTP extensions that we added. And so we have this add refit client, and I'm adding it with this endpoint, this interface that I gave. And basically you can also add some options to configure the HTTP client. So in our case, we actually have an API key that I need to put to actually get this to work properly. So that is also using our configuration extensions here. So what configuration extensions is doing is basically it allows you to load up your app settings.json that you may have in your application as a strongly typed class, right? So you can load up this option and inject these options into different classes and different services, into all that stuff. So if we look, we have a app settings.development.json, and this was pasted in from our branch here. And so these YouTube endpoints options will actually be loaded into a YouTube endpoint class, and it'll have an API key property that will be read by refit and do all that stuff. So it's not going to work right now because I have an empty thing. So I will clear this out, and I will put one with a real API key. Please don't steal my API key. And we should be able to now run this, and we'll have real data. It won't build right now because we have to do the YouTube build, the video player endpoint next, and that's going to be our next task after we add some state UI with our feeds. So we'll get into some more MVUX stuff as we go. But basically, what we're going to want to be doing is, you'll notice that when I run the application, I'll search, I'll clear the text box, I'll turn off. I'll go to airplane mode, and basically you'll just be stuck with a blank app. And so the next thing is, how are we going to have representation of an async value be shown state on your UI in a nice way, right? So this should load up soon. Sorry. Yeah, so you'll see right now it's blank because it's searching, right? And as it eventually loads data, data, no. Maybe something's wrong. Oops. Interesting. Usually you should see something. But usually you would have some data showing up, which I'm not sure why it's not. And basically you would be able to, let's type in something else. Okay. Oh, it's telling me I don't have internet. Okay. Anyway, we'll set up the feed view templates, and then we can see what's going on, right? So the next thing we'll do is we will switch over to the next step, and we'll bring over the changes. We'll pull. Okay. So the next thing that we did is we actually jumped over, and if we look at our main page, we have a new. Where is it? Here. We have our list view as we would expect, right? That it is going to be displaying our results in our videos. And we actually have this new thing that's wrapping it called the feed view, okay? And so a feed view is basically is a view coming from the MVUX sort of world of extensions that we have from Uno. And it is a control that is able to consume a feed or a state or whatever, anything that's observable. And it's able to switch to different templates and different views depending on the state of that asynchronous feed, right? So if the feed is currently fetching data, if the feed is in an error state, if the feed has returned data but the data is actually empty, it will display different UI for you as you go, right? So as a value template, so when the feed is valid and it has actual data, we'll display that list view. If there's nothing, we'll display a none template. If there is an error, we'll display an error template. And by default, its template for loading is basically just a progress ring, so we don't need to customize that in any way. And so you'll see here, we just have our error template defined here that just has, oh no, something went wrong, and it has custom views that match basically what we're seeing here in our UI. So maybe this will work, or maybe my API key is done. That's probably what happened. So if this doesn't work, we can reconnect it back to our mock data if we want. Yeah, so now we have our loading view as we should. Yeah, I think my API key is probably toast. So we can quickly do that as well. So if we go here, getting started. We can go to our API and generate a new one. Show key. No, I want a different one. Delete. And I want to delete. Didn't work. Yeah, so, oh no, something went wrong. So yeah, so our API key died, so we're in the error state now, which is interesting. The other thing I need to do is just get this guy, and we'll quickly get a new API key. Next, what do you want from me? Public data. We'll get this going. And then we will, oh, here we go. Here. So if we were to rerun this. So, but basically the next step is we're going to be creating the media player. So let's see, actually that built pretty quickly. So we should load. It is not working. Something's wrong here. Yeah, my Wi-Fi should be working. It's telling me there's an error, but okay, we can keep going. because we can always connect it back. So if we go back to our app.xaml.cs, we have our mock here that we can use instead. So we can define a use mocks directive, or we can just do this instead. So if we connect this back to our mock, using dependency injection, yeah, it should work as it is, but yeah, it could be. Yeah, so anyway, so we'll connect to the mock data for now. I don't know what's going on. But basically, yeah, so we've clicked on one of our mock data ones, and we get nothing because we haven't included the media player code yet. But basically, we're on the video details page now. The media player element is there because I pulled it in from the UI Figma, from the Figma. It's just not all set up to be playing yet, and we do have the data that we see from the rest of the from the rest of the data that we have here. It's displaying on the application as it should. So what we'll do is we'll get the models set up for the player models. So in our services and our models, what we're going to do is we're going to add a player models class. Player models. Yes. And we'll bring in a bunch of more service level models just so we can have this playing, and we'll have a new endpoint basically. So we have our iYouTube endpoint that's supposed to work to search for our videos. Oh, this is getting loud. And so basically we could then add a new one for the player endpoint, since this is a different endpoint that we will be reaching out to, which will hopefully work. Player endpoint. YouTube player endpoint, yes. Oh, not two models, two services. Oh, don't care. So we'll have this endpoint again using refit, and it's going to be calling this player API and doing all this fancy stuff. And we're going to be registering this as a different client in our app.cs. So in our app.cs, we have our refit client registration for the YouTube endpoint. We could do the same thing for the YouTube player endpoint, right? And so there's nothing, we don't have to do any other special stuff here. We don't have to do any other configuration, so it should be good as it goes. So the other thing we're going to do is in our iYouTube service, we're going to have a new method that we're going to be implementing for our YouTube service. And it's going to be called getVideoSourceURL to actually get the streaming URL from our stuff. And we're going to be updating our YouTube service to now take the player endpoint as a dependency. And we'll implement this new method down here. We'll implement this new method down here called getVideoSourceURL, which is basically just going to call that player endpoint and get that stream data. So that player endpoint we just implemented before, or created before. So in our video details model, this will now take the player endpoint, the YouTube service as a dependency. So we'll add that here, and we'll add a method to the video details model. And this will be called getVideoSource, which is basically just going to be calling that YouTube service to call that method that we did and return that as our video source. So this will eventually call into that, right? So if we replace this dummy video source property that we had before with this one, it'll be a feed. So it'll just be exposing data in an observable way, and it'll call this getVideoSource as its initial value to pull in the data as well. And we'll just update the mock to also implement that interface, but it basically won't do anything, which I'm not sure if the APIs don't work, we won't be able to play the video, but we'll see what happens. And in our video details page, this is the first time we're looking at it, but basically we have this media player element here. So this media player element, if I bring in the new one, where is my snippet? I lost it. Set media player properties. Oh, oops, sorry. We will update the properties as so, and we will format. Okay. So basically, this is our media player element, and so it's going to be binding to that video source that we had here, and we also set the poster source. So basically, it'll have a nice picture, at least if the video is not playing, of the thumbnail for the video itself. And we give it a name, and we're going to autoplay once we navigate to this page. Now, in the code behind, we don't want this page. So in certain cases, in certain platforms, for making things faster and making things lighter, certain pages may not be unloaded all the time when you navigate away, because if you navigate back, we don't have to rebuild the whole page. So the thing is, we don't want to have the video actually continuing to play as we navigate away, right? So we can add some of this code here. So we could just say, once we've navigated away, so navigated from this page, we're going to grab that player, and we're just going to make sure we pause the video in case it's still there. And so the last thing we need to do is we need to go to our CS proj, and we need to add the media player feature. So this will bring in, and we save it. So I hadn't shown this before, but this is the single project sort of. You'll notice that our CS proj for an Uno application is very small. There's no NuGet package references. There's nothing going on. And so this is all driven by these Uno features. So we have an Uno SDK here that is driven by this version. So our Uno SDK is at 5399, and 5399 points to all the proper stable versions for Uno extensions, for navigation, for the media player bits, for all those things. And of course, you can override those if you want to use different versions for these dependencies. But this will basically bring in, media element will bring in any native bits that we might need for media players for different platforms, right? For the web, or for desktop, or for Android, or for anything like that. So there's some native dependencies that we might need. And so let's see if this plays, but I'm not sure if it will. It was working this morning, and now it does not. So as this builds, the only other thing that we're going to do is we're basically going to take the assets for things like, well, you'll notice that when we run the app, I'll let this load still, but when you run the app, you'll see like the big logo, Uno logo in the middle, and the app icon for itself on Android is just that Uno logo, right? So the only things that we're going to do other than that is to sort of get those using a nice new tube player logo as well. So, and it's actually easy to do, so it's very nice. So you see this big ugly Uno logo right here. Hopefully we can get this to go away. This, I'm not sure will work unless, yeah, it's not going to work because we're using the mock service right now. So I'll try one more time, otherwise we'll just, you'll just have to believe me that it works. Here, YouTube service. If I rerun this, what I'll do is I will go here and I will start with the last part. So if we were to go back to the workshop, where is it? Two-player. We have these nice assets for our splash screen and for other things. Yeah, it's not working. Interesting. Yeah, if we were to run, let's see. Sure, Windows. Let's try that. Come on. Of course. Oh, there you go. Okay. So we'll see if that runs any better. Otherwise, we're wrapping up at this point, but it would be nice to be able to play the video. Oh, there you go. So you'll see it's sort of like, oops, the designs are sort of hard-coded to a mobile layout. So it should work, and there we go. We have working video. I don't know why it's not working on Android on the emulator. This is really loud. But yeah, so we have it working as we should. We could play pause. We can, I don't know if the full screen will work. But anyway, that's as you go. And when we navigate back, we should be able to do all this stuff. We can live search for NDC conferences. Whoa. For NDC conferences. And we can play NDC videos. So it should be working on the other platform, which is odd. But the last little bit, if we want to end quickly, is we can just change some nice stuff using our assets here. So in our assets, in our splash and our icons, you'll notice we have these SVGs, which are just defaulted to the Uno logo and all that. So we can actually delete this one. And we can open, and we can go here, and we can copy this one, or save, or copy it. Oh, copy it. Or I guess save. To our downloads. Oh, it's already there in my downloads. Okay, good. So we can go here, and we can go to our downloads. And we can bring this in here, can rename it. And same idea for our icons. So I'll remove icon foreground. Oops. I'll remove icon foreground. And I should have an icon foreground here. And we can go back. And I will uninstall the application here just to clear it out. We should have a tube player. So uninstall, uninstall. And I can go back to Android. And I can do the same thing for Windows as well, I guess. But if we go here, this should be picked up as the new one. Yes. So we should be able to build. And basically, you don't have to deal with like XXMDPI, XXHDPI, icon assets for iOS or any of that other stuff. So basically, we have a little resizitizer project that lives within Uno that will grab an Uno icon and an Uno splash build action, so these SVGs. It'll properly convert them to the proper PNGs, and it'll place them in the proper folders, into the proper places. And you should have, so you should have two-player here now exist with the proper app icon, and it looks nice. And if I do this on iOS, or if I do this on Windows, if I do this on any other platform, it'll look like the native proper icons themselves. And you should have them as well in the splash screen. Yeah. So we have now this new splash logo that opens, and it goes to the extended splash screen as well. And it displays the app as it should, right? I don't know why it's not working, but you did see the videos working on Windows. And so that is basically that. So we do now have this working video application that's pulling from the YouTube videos. It's pulling from the YouTube APIs for its endpoints. And it's using all the nice bells and whistles that Uno has to offer basically for building applications. Sorry? Yeah, ad-free. Yeah. So far, I haven't seen any ads play. So, yeah, and so that's it. So basically, we got a sort of a look at everything. I had to rush through a little bit of it, and some of it didn't work. I don't know why. But definitely, if you want, I have these slides available. So there's the links to the workshop, the links to the GitHub, the links to the Figma file as well. This is all open and free and open source. But yeah, definitely go check it out. If you have any other questions about Uno in general, let me know. I do have stickers here if people want to come get stickers. But yeah, that is basically it. So that was a whirlwind, but yeah, thank you for attending, and I hope you learned something. So thank you very much. Yeah. yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You can ask them or you can come up. It's all good.